All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome back. This is the X Zone. I'm Rob McConnell. We're coming to you on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, and around the world on classic1220.ca. If you'd like to send me an email, xzone at xzoneradiotv.com, or to get me right here at our studios, it is xzone at classic1220.ca. My guest this hour is Dr. Rita Louise, an old-time friend of the X Zone Radio. And let's see, what can I say about Dr. Louise that... Well, why don't we just bring her on, Craig, and say hello to Dr. Rita Louise. How are you, Dr. Rita?
I'm doing great, Rob. How are you?
I'm just doing fine. Thank you very much for joining us tonight, Doctor. It's always great having the doctor in the house. But for those people who haven't had the opportunity of hearing you before here on Classic 1220, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So, I joke around and say that my day job is working as a medical intuitive counselor, or energy medicine practitioner, where I help people understand and work through, I'm going to say in a very large sense of the word, health-related problems, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual. People come to me to get answers to questions that they don't know how to pose.
What kind of questions do you get asked these days, Doctor? Has everything changed since COVID, or are they the same questions as they were before COVID?
They're pretty much the same questions, Rob. I have to tell you, when COVID struck, I thought I would be overwhelmed with phone calls,
right?
People freaking out. I have a lot of clients that, oh my God, I stubbed my toe. Do I have cancer? And it was pretty freaking quiet.
Really?
Because I think people were just scared. And now things have resumed, and people have gone back, for the most part, to their normal, regular lives of thinking about themselves and taking care of themselves.
How would you express yourself? As far as I know, Dr. Rita, you are a psychic. You deal with alternative health, trauma recovery, ancient mysteries, ghost-attached entities, the entire gambit. But where did Dr. Rita Louise start with all of this?
Long story, but I'm going to So I was always interested in psychic abilities, but that was my second love in life. My first love in life was archaeology and anthropology. But when I discovered the whole concept of ESP back in the day, my interest shifted. And that was by the time I was 13. And I really stayed on that track. Went to the Berkeley Psychic Institute, studied with them, finished my education, thought I would just be Rita the psychic chick and talk about relationships and whatever. And I found that I was always finding people's health issues. And if they had a health concern, helping them identify what the psycho-spiritual aspects were that were tied to their health issue. But the first question people would ask after I go, oh, well, there's something going on with your kidney, is what can I do about it? And I had nothing. Go meditate, get some energy work done. I had nothing. And it led me to go back to school and get a degree as a naturopath and then a PhD in natural health counseling so I could support them. And to be clear, my PhD is the focus of it was how our thoughts and emotions affect our health. So it all kind of tied back together. But instead of doing functional medicine where, you get blood work done
Yeah.
or, some kind of test, I just use my intuition to look into people's bodies to see what's going on and then give them my feedback.
What are some of your high points in your career that you'd like to share with us tonight?
High point. So I was sharing this story with a friend of mine, and it's my miracle story. And I'm going to try to make it short.
Okay.
But I had a woman that came in who was complaining of uterine fibroids. She was diagnosed with uterine fibroids and wanted to know what she could do because she didn't want to get a hysterectomy.
Right.
And so I was looking at her and I said, based on what I'm seeing, if you act very aggressively with alternative medicine, you have about a 6-month window before you need to really look at having the surgery. And so she was okay with that. But then I just kind of stopped and shifted gears and looked at her and I go, do you have a boyfriend? And she said, yeah. And I said, well, you need to dump him. And she just looked at me aghast. And I told her that her need to have him love her was what was sitting underneath the fibroids in the first place.
Ah.
And I have a lot of one and done people. I mean, they'll come to me when they have an issue, but they're not, like a therapy client or a chiropractor where they're coming every week.
Right.
For the most part.
Mm-hmm.
So I see her at an event like 6 months later, and she runs up and gives me this hug, and she goes, they're gone. And I go, what? She goes, the fibroids. And I just looked at her, and she goes, and so is he. So apparently she went home and dumped him. And the fibroids went away, and she did nothing.
Unreal.
No supplements, no nothing. Just by changing what was going on in her life, the fibroids went away.
Dr. Rita, how do our thoughts and emotions affect our health?
That's it's not a loaded question. I just have to make a simple answer. So when we express a disease, like diabetes or cancer or something like that, it's our body's way of telling us there's something going on, but it's not a functional thing. Prior to that, we have probably had very negative thoughts and emotions or limiting beliefs that supersede the expression of the disease. And so people that have surgery to chop their gallbladder out or to remove cancer, they don't really change anything. They just deal with the physical part. And so many times it will come back because the issue, the true issue, has never been resolved.
So how do they find out what the true issue is? And
they come to me.
Yeah, well, that was I should have saw that one coming.
Go ahead.
People
can do it. It is it's a little easier, and I'm just going to say it this way: it's a little easier getting that input from somebody on the outside. And I say that not because we can't do that and we can't look at our own stuff, but many times our ego or our pre-thoughts kind of limit where we'll go. And I'll give a very fast example. So I had somebody come and they had diabetes and wanted to know what was going on. And so I'm checking their pancreas and I said, well, I feel like you had this issue with your mom. And he goes, no. I always had these issues with my dad. And I was like, you're not showing me your dad. I feel like with your dad, you resolved a lot of that. I said, but was your mom sugar and spice? And he goes, well, she gave me a lot of milkshakes. And I was like, no, was she sugar and spice? Did she do things very nicely to manipulate you? And he stopped and kind of took a step back and was like, well, really, she did. And I said, well, it's her that is sitting in this whole diabetes thing. But it was something he never would have looked at because on the surface, it was always his dad. And he was always fixated on that. So by having a third party look at it, whether it's somebody like me, sometimes it can be a friend, sometimes we can move past our own stuff to see the reality of what's going on.
Do our physical choices also affect us?
Well, obviously they do. A word that has been coming up for me a lot lately is neglect. Americans are not taught to respect themselves, and their physical body. You go to the supermarket and the produce department gets smaller as they introduce more prepackaged foods.
Right.
We're not encouraged to exercise. It's something that we really have to make a choice about versus having that just be part of how we're brought up, and this is what we do, and we eat healthy, and we want to take care of ourselves. But that's really not the situation, at least in America, which is sad to me.
It seems like it's the same all over the world these days, Dr. Rita. How can we change it? How can we make it better? Because there's so much negativity in the world today.
There is, and it's interesting because we don't recognize how our negative thinking ultimately will affect our health. When we're having positive thoughts, it's like we're not messing our bodies up. We're in alignment. We are going with the flow of how things should be, and that produces vitality. It's when we have the negative thoughts which lead to negative emotions, and the emotions create biochemical reactions in the body. So you can have a negative thought,
right?
But not create an emotional response. Somebody cuts you off in traffic and you just wave them by and you don't do anything. And then, somebody else can cut you off and you have an emotional response. And it's those emotional responses that mess with the chemistry in our bodies. And so if we're chronically in a negative place, the times that we're having emotional responses to those negative thoughts is a lot more than, having positive reactions to positive thoughts.
Just true. And you and I have to take our first break, so please stand by. Exonation, our guest this hour is Dr. Rita Louise, and the good doctor and I will be back on the other side of this commercial break as the X-Zone continues with yours truly, Rob McConnell, from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, and we are coming to you around the world on classic1220.ca. If you would like to send me an email, my email address is xzone@classic1220.ca. The topic of this this last hour of tonight's show, my goodness, the first hour went by so fast, I thought we were still on it. But this is hour number 2. And my guest and I, Dr. Rita Louise, will be back on the other side of this break, so whatever you do, don't go away.
Bring the wind to carry me over, lead me home to my town. Tell me when that breeze is blowing, taking me home to my town.
And welcome back. Dr. Rita Louise is our very special guest. Her website is soulhealer.com. Dr. Louise, what are is there any specific type of question you get asked, or do you get asked questions right across the board?
I joke around and say my office is the land of the weird because people think that they have this very weird thing going on, and sometimes it's even weird for me, but most of the time I've run across it, at some point in time or the other. People come with just a vast array of issues, whether it's an issue at work or in their relationship, or they have some disease, or
right.
It's hard to even put my finger on any one thing that people come with.
I hate to ask you this, but what is the weirdest thing that has ever crossed your desk?
So probably the weirdest. Well, that was pretty weird. Now I'm going to see if I can remember the details. So I had a woman come, and she was working on ascending, like transitioning the body, but
Yeah.
not dying, ascending. And I just was like, and she was very clear in her energy. She was very clear. She didn't seem delusional. I wasn't quite sure how she was going to do that, but I do know that with the whole concept of ascension, there needs to be a clarity of energy movement in the body. And she was really working on it. So, I mean, I hope she ascends, but I don't know. Sometimes I have people that come and it's like, I have these spiritual attachments and, I'm being psychic attacked by these people, but it started 20 years ago and they're still psychic attacking me. And I'm like, okay.
Oh, my goodness. How can someone find out what thoughts and emotions might be affecting their health?
So one, and I'm going to put this out, actually a couple of different things, and they're a little on the generic side.
Okay.
So Louise Hay came out with a book called You Can Heal Your Life, I think was the name of the book, but it was Louise Hay. And her book has like lists of different ailments and what the spiritual, mental implication is, so if you have canker sores, you're not wanting to speak your truth, or if you have issues in your knees, you're not willing to bend the knee in supplication. Not that I necessarily agree with everything that she has to say, but it's something and it's a place to start.
Right.
Because everybody brings different stuff to the table. And then there is also a little bit less specific. In Chinese medicine, each organ is assigned to a different piece of emotion or a different experience. So, for example, if you're having liver issues, typically it means that you have issues with anger or frustration, where the gallbladder is more associated with planning. The pancreas is about receiving the sweetness of life. So those people that are givers, but you pay them a compliment and they can't accept it, they will more than likely have some kind of a pancreas issue, which would be like a diabetes kind of thing. I have found that the Chinese system, although less specific, tends to be more accurate. But then you have a lot more sorting out to do.
Yeah,
it's like, okay, I have a liver issue, so what's going on with my anger and what's going on with my frustration? Because people that are depressed, they say depression is anger turned inward. And so you might have a liver issue, but find yourself depressed. And so externally, you're not angry. But somewhere deep down, there is that anger.
Now, how would you describe the words medical intuitive?
I mean, the simplest way I would describe it is a medical intuitive is a psychic person who will talk to you about your health. And I'm a little biased here because there are people that say that they're medical intuitives, but they only address the health of the subtle body, the aura, the chakras, the energy channels.
Right.
Where I actually go, and I'm not the only one, so I'm not like owning all of this. We'll go down to the physical body, and go, okay, so you didn't break your arm, you just have like a really bad pulled muscle over there, or well, you think that the issue is in your liver, but really the issue is starting in your stomach. And your liver is being a secondary symptom. So what we need to do is address what's going on in the stomach. And then I go into all the like, and here's the emotional part that's tied to it, because there always is.
So, if someone listening tonight is saying, well, geez, maybe I need a medical intuitive, maybe I'm going to get a hold of Dr. Rita Louise after the X Zone is over, what kind of medical intuitive processes can you help them with?
Like I said, I have people that come with all kinds of stuff. Sometimes they'll say, well, I have this. And, a lot of the times I'll have my computer sitting in front of me and I'll be like, hang on 1 second. And I have to look it up because I don't know what it is, but then because they know the doctor words. I'm not a medical doctor, and when you go to naturopath school, they don't talk about disease in that way. So, and I'm just trying to think of like some disease that, anyway, so if I look it up and it's like, well, this is the disorder of the stomach, then I know, I need to go look at their stomach. But, but sometimes it's like, I don't even have a clue. And so I have to descramble their doctor-ese and put it into terms that I can describe. And over the years, I've gotten pretty good at making the correlation between this is what I'm seeing and this is the doctor word for it, but not necessarily all the time. But, I mean, I had somebody today that they had this weird rash, and somebody else thought it was a viral something infection, whatever, because the person had a virus. But when I looked at them, what it looked like more to me was that their stress response system kind of was going crazy. Right. And they were, the rash was more like they were hiving.
Wow.
And, because if somebody has a virus, there should be higher antibodies, white blood cells, there should be other things tied to a virus, and I saw none of that. All I saw was this like electricity in this guy's body of it kind of fritzing out.
What was it like the first time, Dr. Louise, Dr. Rita, that you knew that you were actually helping somebody using the abilities that you have?
Wow, no one's asked me that question ever. So I went to the Berkeley Psychic Institute, and basically you just did sessions, 3 sessions a week, psychic fairs. I mean, you just worked it. Right. And usually 2 or more people would work with one client, because especially when you're kind of new, sometimes you would get stumped and wouldn't know what to say, or, kind of protecting you from yourself. How's that? Because there was always somebody to talk. Right. And one evening, there were only like 3 of us and 3 clients. So we each got our own client, which was nerve-wracking, to say the least. But they had a very formatted procedure. And I had been in the program like 4 months. I don't know, not a super long time. And so I'm working through this thing, and one of the readings we did was going through the layers of the aura, talking about what we saw and like what was working, what wasn't working. And I got to the 5th layer, which has to do with communication. And I said to the woman, so I get the impression that that your ability to communicate is how you really express yourself. Where some people express themselves with art or music, for you, it's through your voice or writing or, that kind of expression. And then I said, but I get the impression that a situation happened where you weren't able to talk. And I'm feeling like there was a hospital involved, like you had, were getting your tonsils out. And I felt like she was young. And the woman just started to cry. Wow. In the chair. And now I'm freaking out, because that was my first time having somebody cry. And, I asked her what was going on. So apparently when she was 10, she had open heart surgery, and they had intubated her.
Ah.
So she wasn't able to talk.
Wow.
I was like, wow. So not that I really helped her, but it freaked me out, that's for sure. I wasn't expecting that.
Does that happen a lot where people freak you out?
Not so much. They freak me out if I get like this information and I just am like throwing it, like you're throwing the noodle on the wall to see if it's going to stick, and I'll throw something out and I really don't know what I'm talking about. And I just am like, well, this is what I'm seeing. And they're like, yeah, that's it. And it's like, okay. I mean, people are kind of predictable for the most part, but then every so often, something gets thrown in there that is just not on your everyday radar. How's that?
Oh, Dr. Rita, please stand by. You and I have to take our break at the bottom of the hour. Exonation, our guest this hour is Dr. Rita Louise, and her website is soulhealer.com. And this is the X Zone. My name is Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from the broadcast center and studios of Classic 1220 in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. And we're streaming around the world on classic1220.ca. If you'd like to send me an email, xzone at classic1220.ca. We'll be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away.
Tell me when that breeze is blowing, taking me home to my town.
Welcome back, everyone. Dr. Rita Louise is my special guest of this hour here on the X Zone, and you're listening to us on your hometown radio, Classic 1220. Her website is soulhealer.com. And Dr. Rita, has there ever been a time when you just have to question your abilities because what you're getting just doesn't make sense to you?
Yes. Okay, so there's two different things. Sometimes people, how do I express this? Our energy is supposed to be moving, ebbing and flowing. And sometimes you get people that will sit there and they like cross their arms and have this like prove it to me attitude.
Right.
And you can't read them. You just can't read them. But then I'm like, I need for you to breathe. I need for you to calm down. And then they kind of calm down and you can get into the session. Sometimes they come, and this is very rare for me, where I have nothing. I have nothing.
Really?
Sometimes they'll come and I see something going on, but I am at a complete and utter loss for what it is. For example, I had a client come, and what I was seeing was like his body was filled up with water and the water level was dropping. And, by the time he came to me, the water level was just above, like just below his shoulders, just above his chest, kind of in that area. And I was like, because it wasn't tied to an organ. It wasn't, it was just this water level thing, which I really didn't understand what they were trying to communicate. But I just felt like there was this urgency because the water was draining fast. And and the guy came with his wife because he was having some mobility and memory issues. And I said, I'm just feeling like you need to go to the doctor. now, soon, go to the doctor. And she said, well, we have an appointment with a neurologist in 4 months. And I just looked at her and I'm like, you don't got 4 months. And so they ended up going to the emergency room that weekend, and he was admitted immediately and was diagnosed with ALS, Lou Gehrig syndrome. And it was like, wow. And that, now knowing what that is, I can kind of go, okay, so if I see that phenomena in someone else, I can maybe make that connection.
Well, all I can say, Dr. Rita, is that, you do great work.
Thank you.
I've had the pleasure of having you on the show a number of times over the last 30 years. And you always amaze me with what you've done in your past and the work that you continue to do. How do you see what you do as a medical intuitive, as well as being a very acclaimed psychic, going on into the future?
I joke around, not that I'm not joking all the time, and just tell people it's like I just do what they tell me to do. During COVID, I mentioned that, during COVID, it got really slow. And
right.
What I have found pattern-wise is that when people get scared, they don't take care of themselves. So like when 9/11 happened, my practice went until people started feeling comfortable again, because all of their energy is focused on what's going on around them and not with themselves. And that's what was happening with COVID. But it made me have to take a step back and go, well, maybe I need to go get a day job, to get through this period, because who knew if we were going to recover from it, COVID, as a people.
Yeah, COVID changed a lot of things in a lot of lives.
And fortunately I never did, and things are back to normal and things are good. And so, I just do what I'm led to do, working with clients, as you know, I write a lot of books. I just released a brand new book. It's called Dang, It Was Me All Along. So, which helps people to look inside and become aware of all of that negative thinking that they're having, and give themselves the opportunity to shift it into something more positive, in a higher vibration, so that they can have happiness and joy in their lives.
But how can somebody who's feeling down in the dumps, doctor, turn things around? And they try so hard to look at the positive things, and yet society is just kind of stamping them down further and further and further. And here you've got this person who is trying their very best to look at the brighter side, to get on the upper side. How do they do that?
And this is going to sound like a very subtle answer.
Okay.
A lot of times when we're looking for the positive, we're waiting for positive things to happen to us. And we're waiting for good things to happen to us, versus looking inside and saying, oh, I'm in a cranky mood. What do I need to do to shift out of this? And what do I need to do in order to make myself happy? And taking responsibility for that feeling and that sensation inside, because it really is possible. You think of, the Tibetan mystics.
Yes.
And the world is blowing up around them, and they're just there meditating, just totally chill, because their focus is on the inside and not what's happening around them. And in today's society, without the expectation that somebody's going to give it to you, and that somebody should make it be that way for you. It's your responsibility. That's why it was me all along. It's like, wow, I guess I wasn't taking good responsibility for that part.
Dr. Rita, for those of us or those listening tonight who don't know the difference between a medical intuitive and psychic abilities, what are they, if any?
Okay. Sure. And I mentioned this a little bit earlier, a medical intuitive is someone that uses their psychic abilities, their intuition, to assess health.
Right.
And then psychic is just kind of like the generic word for the ability to tap into information from that unseen dimension. I do a live stream where I answer questions on Thursday nights. And I have a caveat because it started off and everyone's like, tell me about my dead aunt this and dead person, dead person. And I don't do dead people. I'll talk to you about your health. I'll talk to you about ghosts, but I'm not going to talk to you about like dead people because I don't want them coming to me. But there are some people that they can channel that information very easily. Then there are people that are channels, kind of like Ramtha, where they allow a spirit to come into their body, but they still all fall into that psychic category because it's just a much bigger umbrella that encapsulates all of the different intuitive gifts that people might have, where a medical intuitive is, a subsection of that.
So, Dr. Rita, would you rather be looked at as a medical intuitive or as a psychic?
As a medical intuitive, it's a more professional thing, and I think it when you go to school for as long as I have and done all of these things, it's better than being Rita the psychic chick. I'm Dr. Rita the medical intuitive.
I don't know, I like the name Dr. Rita psychic chick.
Well, my handle is it on this one? On some of my stuff is Psychic Doc, and I actually years ago, I wanted to get the domain, not Soul Healer, but psychicdoc.com. And I was talked out of it. But I'm
Why?
like, but it kind of says what I do.
Yeah, that's who you are.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Dr. Rita's kind of cool. I do like the other one, but the Rita, the psychic chick, for some reason or other. But
well, I like it too, but, there's just, to me, a more professional regard to identifying as a medical intuitive versus, a psychic.
Let me ask you this, Doctor. We've got about 2 minutes left, my producer tells me. What do you see for the year 2024 asking you to switch hats from doctor to psychic?
That isn't happening. I mean, I'm always a psychic. I'm always a psychic. I identify as a medical intuitive.
Yeah. Oh, heavens. So you can't tell me what you see for 2024?
2024. Sorry.
Yeah,
so
right.
2023 was really about garbage in people's emotional space coming to the surface. Like, oh, I really don't want to deal with that. Bam.
Yeah.
You have to deal with it. And giving us the tools or the opportunity for awareness to make those changes. And 2024 is really about taking that information that came to the surface in 2023 and having it become part of who we are and moving that forward from like, okay, there's that there to this is who I am. And so
Right.
I feel like 2024 is going to be really good.
I guess what we have to see in the years to come is that people take responsibility for their own actions. That we have to own who we are, what we do, what we say, and how we act. We can't pass the buck all the time, can we?
No. And we'll never be happy if we keep doing it.
That is so true. Doctor, please stand by. Exo Nation, Dr. Rita Louise is my very special guest this hour. www.soulhealer.com. And Dr. Rita Louise and I will be back on the other side of this last break as the Exxon continues with yours truly, Rob McConnell, Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until 2 a.m. Until midnight, right here on the Exxon Broadcast Network and on Classic 1220. It seems that we have lost Dr. Louise. We'll try and get her back as the Exxon continues with yours truly, Rob McConnell. Whatever you do, don't go away. We'll be right back. And welcome back, everyone. That was John Barry and Midnight Cowboy. Remember that? Oh, my gosh, that was such a long time ago. Midnight Cowboy. Who was that? Dustin Hoffman was in that, wasn't he, Craig? Yeah. All right. Dr. Rita Louise is my very special guest this hour, Exonation. www.soulhealer.com. First of all, Dr. Rita, before we go on any further, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show tonight. It's always a great pleasure talking to you. And you've got a new book out. Tell us about it.
So the new book is called Dang, It Was Me All Along.
Dang, it was me all along.
Well, if it was video, I would show you the cover, and it's got this woman standing there like, what the heck?
Love it.
And I write about where I'm being led, and as you know, I love researching.
Yeah.
And so I came to the realization that I had a lot of negative thinking and I had a lot of negative emotions. And the whole COVID thing and thinking about I had to go get a day job and a relationship ended and all of that all butted up together. And what I wanted was to be happy. And what I wanted was to feel inner peace. And that was my goal. But I didn't know if that was something you could get, or is, feeling crappy and having negative thoughts, is that just your lot in life and you just have to deal with it?
But isn't that what everyone wants is happiness and inner peace?
It's what they want, but what I found out is that it's not something that just comes. It's something that you have to work for.
And how do you do that, Doc?
And taking it really down into a nutshell is to stop and really start becoming aware of what's going on inside. There's one study that I don't remember the name of the study, but they identified that 80% of our thinking is negative.
Wow.
80%. That's huge.
It is.
But we're not aware of it. We go through life living on autopilot, and when we live on autopilot, something happens and we have a knee-jerk reaction to it, and our body responds in a certain way. But the way we respond is like a little computer program in us, more like a virus, that this gets activated, you hit the Control-Alt-Delete key, and this is what's going to happen every single time. And so by stopping and going, oh, somebody hit the Control-Alt-Delete button because I'm over here again. And then it gives you the opportunity to turn around and go, oh, well, that's what happened to cause it.
Right.
And you can start paying attention and going, okay, so when that happens, I can choose to respond to it differently and start changing the way you interact with the world on a much more conscious level versus just something happened and you're in your rabbit hole sulking and licking your wounds.
Let me ask you something, Doctor. What kind of intuitive abilities are people born with? Is this something innate that everyone has, but they, for one reason or another, just don't want to excel in it like you do?
I believe that everyone has psychic abilities, and some people have them stronger and than other people. Excuse me. And it's kind of like dancing or doing art. Some people are excellent dancers right off the bat.
Yeah.
Other people might be okay dancers, but then they get some training and they turn into magnificent dancers. And then there are other people, it don't matter how many lessons they take, it just ain't working.
2 left feet, they can't go forward, they can't go backwards, all they do is fall.
Pretty much. and so intuitive abilities, psychic abilities are the same. But even to sit there and tap into the psychic ability is really about becoming aware of the thoughts that come through your mind. There are countless clients. This has been kind of a new thing where I'll be working and I'll be like, okay, so I need to come up with a herb or something for this kidney issue that the person has. And true story. And I hear hydrangea. Now I'm thinking, I got hydrangeas in my backyard. I'm going to give this person hydrangea.
Right, send them some
But I
flowers
stopped,
FTD. There you
and
go.
I looked it up, and guess what? Hydrangea is a remedy for kidney issues, and kind of the kidney issue this person was having. And was like, But if I didn't pay attention to that, this person would not have gotten that guidance.
So you have to pay attention and you have to read between the lines, right?
Sometimes there's a certain amount of interpretation that happens, because I'm not particularly auditory. I mean, I got the hydrangea. They give me like one word little blurbs. But I'm very visual, so I'll see this image of something, and then I have to decipher this image into words, which can be a little challenging. Usually the most miraculous ones is I stop interpreting and go, this is what I'm seeing. There's this person and this and this, and they're like, oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. I'm like, okay, good, because I don't.
Yeah, you've mentioned they. Who are they?
So I'm just going to say in a very generic sense that my spirit guide, so I joke around, I call them the peanut gallery. It's 3 or 4, I don't really know. I don't ask questions. They sit off to my right-hand side, and they're the best backseat psychics on the planet.
Wow.
Because I will sit there and be thinking, okay, I'm going to say this to this person because, this is where I'm thinking I need to go. And they'll be like, no, this. Or they just tell me weird stuff. And it's like, like one time they told me, what is it? Castor oil pack. She needs to do a castor oil pack. Well, I know you can do castor oil packs for your liver. I mean, that's an Edgar Casey remedy. Yeah. But she had this thing going on in her throat, and they were like, castor oil pack. And I'm like, huh? Look it up. And, well, you can buy these things on Amazon to do castor oil pack stuff on your neck. I'm like, who'd have thunk?
There you go. Listen, you also have some live stuff that you do that you were telling me about during the break.
Sure. So on Thursday night, I host Thursday Night Live with Dr. Rita Louise. And people can listen to it or participate in it. It's a live stream. I open up, it live streams on Facebook. So Dr. Rita Louise -live on Facebook. Or at Just Energy Radio, so I still use my old radio show YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And from those 2 platforms, they can type in questions so people can get free on-air readings from me. And just kind of hang out and have fun because I'm kind of this way all the time.
Dr. Rita Louise, we're coming down to the time when you and I must say so long for tonight, but what message would you like to share with the X-Zone Nation tonight? What words of wisdom do you have?
We were talking earlier about 2024, and I think that this coming year is really going to be a year for people to solidify into themselves. Things have just been so up in the air, and have it be okay to just ground and be whole and feel whole, because that's the direction we're moving into, where we're not questioning anymore, but we're making decisions of this is what I want and this is where I'm going, and have that be okay. Honor yourself, honor your decision.
My producer asked me to ask you a question. What is your opinion on what is going to happen with the disclosure on UFOs in the year 2024?
Well, they've been trying to disclose for forever, and it just doesn't get airtime. So that would be my hope, is that it actually gets airtime, but there's so much other crazy going on that, it gets like 5 seconds of air and then it moves on. But I think that there are people that believe in UFOs and there are people that don't believe in UFOs, and I'm not really sure that that needle is going to move all that much if the government says, oh, there are UFOs.
I agree with you. I really do. We've had Stephen Bassett on the show a number of times. We've had UFO proponents, pro and con, over the years, and I agree with you, Dr. Rita. I don't think that needle will move.
I mean, because you're either going to believe it. I mean, it's kind of like ghosts.
Yeah.
I've experienced ghosts. I think most people, if asked, have a ghost story, but if you ask them if they believe in ghosts, they'll say no. No.
Dr. Rita Louise, always a great pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much for taking time out of I know you've got a very busy schedule. Tell us about the books that you have available for sale, where our listeners can go to buy your books, and if they'd like more information about you, and maybe they'd like to book a consultation with you as well.
Sure. So I have 7 books now.
My Lord, is it 7 already?
7, yes.
Wow.
I've been a busy girl.
Yes, you have.
And so there's the newest book, which is Dang, It Was Me All Along.
Dang, I love that name.
The one right before that was The Dysfunctional Dance of the Empath and Narcissist. I have 2 ancient alien books. One is E.T. Chronicles, What Myth and Legends Have to Say About Human Origins. And kind of a follow-up book to that is Stepping Out of Eden. I have Dark Angels, an insider's guide to ghosts, spirits, and attached entities. I have Avoiding the Cosmic 2x4, which talks about why we get sick from a subtle energy perspective. Excuse me?
15 seconds.
Yes, sir. And they can find me at soulhealer.com. Just fill out the contact form, and I will get back to you right away.
Dr. Rita Louise, thank you so much for joining us. I'd love to have you back on to talk about your books and what else is ever new in the world of Dr. Rita Louise. Until then, take care of yourself, my dear friend.
Thank you.
Exonation Dr. Rita Louise. Her website is soulhealer.com. And I'll be back tomorrow night at 10 o'clock as once again we cross the time-space continuum to this place that I call the X-Zone, a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. And we're heard Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until midnight right here on Classic 1220 and streamed on classic1220.ca. So until then, always keep your eyes to the sky and your heart to the light. Good night, everyone.